Greetings! In this video I'll be painting an Intercessor from the Dark Hunters chapter. This was a requested chapter, where the requester mentioned using them in Space Marine 2 with a power axe. So I thought why not, and used one of the power axes from Space Marine 2 specifically for this build. Like all 3D printed parts, it's all personal use, so I can't share anything unfortunately. There's a further disclaimer about that in the description. Like with the power axe, I also printed the pauldrons, which are modified to match the reference material. The old tactical marking with the hollow arrow looked cool to me, so I went with that one instead of the newer version. After assembly, I primed the model black with my airbrush, but of course you can use a spray can primer if you prefer. Starting off, I used Kantor blue as the base coat for the armour. The colour changes throughout the years, but I feel this is a good middle ground between all of them. If you're wanting to do a brighter version, you could start with Calidor Sky, though that is a very saturated blue. Now onto the leather. Recently I'm finding it easier to paint the base armour, correct it with black, and then do the leather. This order helps prevent mistakes, as they're right next to each other around the waist. That being said, I did forget to do the black in this part, mainly because the blue wasn't so messy. For the recipe itself though, it's Rhinox hide, Skrag brown, and Deathclaw brown like usual. Only this time I tried to make a fancy graphic to explain the process visually. I'll try to incorporate some more visual aids in the future. It might help explain my process better than my babbling does. I have been attempting to do a bit of a glaze with the Skrag brown to make the transition less harsh. It's not something I'm well versed in though. Onto metallics now, starting with Iron Warriors for the weapon blades. I also applied this to the Imperialis on the torso, the armour and power pack details, the bionic arm, as well as the service studs on his head. To highlight, I used Runefang steel, hitting edges and upwards facing surfaces to help the natural light highlight what I think should be highlighted. Onto the markings now, using Ulthuan Grey. This works as an alternative to brighter whites, as it goes on easier but it's a tad darker. If you want to, you can always go over this with Corax White or even White Scar, but unless I'm doing a super clean model with white transfers nearby, I don't bother going that bright. I've gone with the fourth company like some of the references go with. The green looks interesting with the blue, which I used Warpstone Glow to use as a base coat. It does take a few thin coats to get full coverage with this colour though. Wanting to finish off the base coats before doing more highlights, I painted the head with Bugman's Glow. I then moved on to Mephiston Red for the cable on the power axe, as well as one of the nodules on his wrist. I finally moved over to Abaddon Black to clean up the black bits around the model. This was mainly the weapon casing and the undersuit. Now onto some highlights, starting with Evil Sun's Scarlet for the cable and wrist light. Following that, I applied Wild Rider Red and Lugganath Orange in small and tiny dots respectively, to act as a little light. Now onto the face, starting with Cadian Fleshtone. I painted the raised surfaces of the face, the nose, brow, cheekbones and lips, before doing a thin application all over the top to act as both lighting and blemishes. The next highlight is with Kislev flesh, going over the previous spots but in a more controlled manner. instead trying to hit the edges specifically and draw lines for the forehead. It's not perfect, but I think it's good enough for me. Taking a detour for a moment, I used Mechanicus standard grey to highlight the power axe handle and casing. Now returning to the face, I mixed some of that Mechanicus standard grey with some Cadian Fleshtone to make a greyed skin colour, which I painted on his head to mimic very short hair like a buzz cut. I also applied this to his eyebrows and jawline. Happy with the face, I went over to Runefang's steel to highlight the rivets on the pauldron that I missed before, as well as bring up the brightness on the service studs on the guy's forehead. Next, the most time-consuming part, highlighting the blue. I used Macragge blue for this, going over most edges. I used to do this as a dry brush in an early step, followed by a cleanup process, but I'm enjoying doing it this way now. Plus, it's good practice for brush control. More highlighting here with Moot green over the pauldron trim. As before, slow and steady. Now onto the weathering, for a simple pass with a Sepia enamel Paneliner from AK Interactive. Basically just going into the recesses around the armour and even over a little bit of the face. After I was happy with that, I left it to dry for a while. I then applied my usual basing method, followed by an ultramatte varnish. And here we have it! An Intercessor of the Dark Hunter's 4th Company. I'm really happy with this one. It's simple, but really satisfying in some way. The blue looks nice and rich, despite it being as dark as it is. Maybe the Macragge blue highlight helped more than I thought it would. The other bits are nice too, all round I'm very happy. You might notice I didn't paint the eyes, and well, I don't really feel like there's a need to do them. I've seen faces painted many times, and they often paint the lower eyelid as the eye. I feel like there's only a tiny bit of the eye actually visible, and I don't think it'd be as bright as people painted in reality at least. It's also super difficult to do, let alone film. I mean, if you want to do it, more power to you, I just personally don't see the need to do so. Unless you're going to spend, hours on the face alone. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this one. I liked using the power axe to lean into the Space Marine 2 feel a bit, and I'm surprised how nicely the axe came out from that game. But anyway, that's all I've got for this one. Hope you stick around for the next one.